Hello, world. Oh, what is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte. We're here live at the Build studio in New York City. Our next guest, oh man, you've seen him in like the Captain America films, the Purge films, of course, Kingdom, and now you can catch him as the host on the Netflix original series, FightWorld. In it, we travel around the world examining the similarities and differences of 5 different martial arts cultures. This show is wild. It looks amazing. It takes you places you haven't been, tells you stories you haven't heard before, and explores this rich history and culture on an intimate level through the eyes of the fighters living it. I'm so excited to talk to this dude all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. The great Frank Grillo is here. How about that? Huh? Not yet, not yet. We're going to get your phones ready. He's going to be out in a second. Before we bring him out here, though, I believe we have a trailer for the series, so let's go ahead and run that clip.
Around the world, fighting for what you believe in is truth. That instinct to fight, to survive, to protect. But this isn't a show about fighting. This is a show about people who fight. I'm Frank Grillo. I'm an actor and a lifelong fight enthusiast.
This is like folklore to me. I can't tell you how much respect I have for you.
เราเหมือนแบบมาชกกันแล้วเราไม่ได้เหมือนต้องการจะฆ่ากันเราไม่ต้องการที่จะมาเอาชนะเขา
A wrestler is supposed to defend the honor, pride, and dignity of his community.
It represents freedom.
It really gives you an appreciation for what these real professionals go through.
We use martial arts as a platform for bringing different minority groups together.
These kids found each other for this.
I think that fighting, everything becomes so clear. Everybody bleeds the same. Everybody sweats the same. Everyone who fights has to have a reason why. And I think that in the end, most reasons are the same.
Ladies and gentlemen, do it up, Mr. Frank Grillo right here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Man, this show, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times, it is wild. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, bro.
What an achievement, man. It is amazing. It really is.
You know, I'm a piece of it. You know, it was an idea that I had, and I'm a piece of the show because there are so many people that I traveled with. The director, Pat McKinley, who also edited it, and all the producers that found these people and the stories, and it was a collective, you know, effort and a bit Herculean, but... And I have to tell you, I'm humbled and surprised by the reaction of it. You know, yeah, I am, because it was so close to me that I knew I would love doing it. But at the end of the day, I don't know where it's going to touch people or if it will touch people. And I almost am like, you know, when people come up to me and there's been a lot of people, and I'm like, really? And why did you like it? And what about it? Yeah, I mean, there's a through line here.
Well, you've been, as you say in the trailer and as we see in the show, a fight enthusiast your whole life. And there's a lot of stuff I want to get into in what you just said. But right now, let's get into this response thing to it. You're a fight enthusiast. You have an appreciation for this. But I think the way you guys have shot this, the way you framed it, the stories you're telling, the people telling them, it's bigger than that at this point. It's a story that's resonating with people beyond just fight enthusiasts.
Yeah, that's what's happened. It's you know, I mean, young women, it's really amazing. And you know, there again, you talk about truth in storytelling or truth in, you know, there's only, when you fight, there's only truth because that's it. But I think when you find stories about people who struggle, which many of us do in many different ways, and that they find some clarity of purpose and some way to come out of that struggle and find themselves, I think all of us as human beings, as parents, we could all relate to that.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things you connect to on it. Even if you're someone who's never thrown a punch, there's so many things that you connect to on a human level with these people.
I agree.
And the stories they're telling. All right, let's dial it back. When you said it's a Herculean effort, there's a lot of people working on it. I'm not entirely convinced you didn't come up with this just to trick people into paying for you to fly around the world and train with these legends. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah.
You are living the dream.
You know, listen, I'm very fortunate. I did get to travel to all these great places, and I met amazing people. And again, I say it all the time, I was a huge Anthony Bourdain fan. Huge. Yeah. I continue to be. Rest in peace. And he's I would go home and just watch Anthony. Like, I found myself not watching television anymore, that I just traveled with this. He was a brilliant writer, and the way he connected me with people in Iran and people in Beirut, and, you know, things that you can't, it doesn't happen in the newspaper, or on our news anyway. And wherever I go in the world, if I'm doing a movie or traveling, I find a gym. And whenever I go in the gym, I'm immediately accepted into their culture, into the fight culture, because I fight. And so there's an honesty there. And through those relationships, I would learn about the culture. And I said, you know, I'm going to talk to Netflix. There's, like Bourdain, you know, it's kind of an easy, it's Bourdain, only instead of food culture, it's fight culture. And we were on a plane not too long after that.
That's pretty amazing. You know, what's funny about that, though, is like the only time you walk into some of the toughest rooms and some of the biggest dudes, and you are ready to go. You say this is intimidating, but you're ready to go. The only time I think you show fear in this entire show is when you hit the marketplace and there's a smelly fruit and there's a food.
A durian.
Yeah, the durian.
Have you ever smelled a durian?
No, I have not.
Evidently, it tastes good, but it smells like bad feet. It's bad. It's bad.
It was just so funny to me because as someone who loved these shows about going out there and trying other food and broadening your horizons, you're not good with food.
I'm not a big eater. I eat one meal a day. I eat the same food all the time. I envy people who are foodies. Yeah. And I love food culture. I'm Italian.
Did you say, Frank, aren't you Italian?
I'm Italian, and I don't eat pasta, and I don't, you know, but I love food culture. And yeah, it's funny. I love Anthony Bourdain, and I don't like food.
This is going to sadden me. What's your one meal? What's the thing you eat all the time?
So mostly salmon.
Ah.
I know. I'm a horrible person. I know, I'm terrible.
Well, it pays dividends. You look incredible.
Well, whatever. I mean, who sees me naked? It doesn't really matter.
I mean, we can do anything on this stage, man. This can go anywhere right now. All right, so you had the conversation. You've conceived of this idea. You're on the plane. What kind of homework are you doing leading up to it? And you had a lot of tough decisions to make, too. I mean, all the fighting styles, all the locations. Walk me through that whole pre-production process.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I had great producers that went out there, and people who were associate producers and producers for just one show because they had connections, and they found, you know, we approved of all these styles and the places, and they found these stories that would be interesting. But like any documentary, what you start out with isn't what you finish with. At some point, the documentary, the subjects take over, and you're no longer going that way because you think that's the story. Because now this guy is really telling the story that you want the audience to see. So it was a lot of kind of let's show up and see what's there and let's shoot, and then find the narrative. You know.
Were there moments that you found difficult to be in or navigate because maybe cultural differences or your perspective as a father? You know, like we see this trailer opens with that young boy.
That's the thing. Because I'm a father. I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old and a 21-year-old, and all boys, and they all are in sports and they box and to go to these places and see again the level of poverty. It's beyond poverty. And to see the suffering that these kids, none of them have many opportunities, if any opportunities, aside from some of the fighting. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, it really is heartbreaking. And you know, it transcends culture. It transcends that. When you're a father or a parent, you're a parent of the world. Like, you know, you become a parent. Yeah. And those were the toughest things. You know, the boy who loses in Thailand, in Sipian. I didn't know he was getting berated by his coach. I thought he was giving him a pep talk. And then when he went into the locker room and the translator, and I said, what did he say to him? He said, oh, he destroyed him.
But it was brutal.
And then, you know, he's 15 years old. He's a baby, you know. And so when I went back there and I hugged him and I said, you're a champion. After that, he broke down and he was crying. I mean, he was, you know. And that's the things that, you know, those are the things I remember the most is those the kids all over the place.
Yeah, the kids. And that's the thing. As I'm watching, I'm like, it's gotta be rough. You know, fight back a feeling of almost helplessness. But it sounds like you be human in that moment.
You do. You're human, and look, you know, you want to offer help, but there's nothing you could really. I'm not going to change what's going on with them financially. I mean, I can't. But. You know, even in Senegal, the stadium collapses the night before the fight, and we, as the Americans, we want to gather everybody to tell you're the fighters, you're the champions of Senegal. Go out and tell the government they need to make some changes. The stadium should never have collapsed. These people should have never died. And they simply looked at us like we were crazy. And they said, it's inshallah. It's inshallah. And that's basically, that's what they say about everything. It's in God's hands. So what are we going to do? It's like, it'll pass and hopefully it won't happen again. But if it does, it's not for us to do it. It's for God to do it. And you have to put your hands up and go, wait, I can't interfere culturally here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not even just as a filmmaker, but in general, like you're talking about years and years, hundreds of years of tradition and culture and stuff that's been established and
Thousands.
Yeah, exactly.
Thousands.
And you're coming in as this outsider to document it, and naturally you bring all of your life experience. What has it done? Let's go back the other way now. You've experienced that. You've seen that. Now you have to get back into the regular world. How has it impacted your perspective on things?
Oh, such a great question. So, in America, we live in a gated community. It's a big, gated, safe place for the most part. And so, I live in California by Malibu, where people have like 5 cars. And, they're worried about what their 6th car is going to be. And so you go back home, and I kind of look around, and I'm like, I have too much. I have too much. It's embarrassing. It's a little bit embarrassing. And so, some of these places have completely changed my DNA, have completely changed the way I feel about how I want to live my life and how I want my kids to live their life. And I think that's what travel does in general. I really do. I think traveling is important, and not just to go to places that are filled with tourists, to go to Rome or to go to Paris. I mean, it's to go to these places that I've been to where there aren't many tourists and to see how people live, to understand yourself.
Are any of your kids into fighting the way you're into fighting? Have they taken to it at all? Or?
My son, my 21-year-old son, Remy, who's been boxing, who's a little chubby kid at 10 years old, and I started him at Mendez Boxing here, where I still go when I'm in New York. And now he's 21, and he spars 3 times a week, and he's about to finish film school, and it's made him a better man, because he's compassionate. He's a sweet young man, and he doesn't walk around afraid, and that's a problem. A lot of men don't know what it's like to be punched in the face, right. And so I often say this, and so they walk around intimidating people because they're afraid, and that's the worst thing. I think that's the worst thing, and that's why I think that's where bullying comes from, and so I want my kids to be able not to fight, but be able to defend themselves if they are forced to. Yeah.
Is he pissed you didn't bring him with you?
He came with me to China.
Did he? Oh, no.
I did a movie in China, and he was with me in China, and I took him to Thailand, to Phuket, and we trained Muay Thai for 3 weeks in Phuket. So he does. I take him. If we get another season, I'll take him with me.
Take him around with
yeah.
How do you hold it? How'd you guys do with the training? Were you
we
have that
got
moment of like he's like besting his old man kind of thing?
Oh,
Not
never.
Yet.
No, not yet. No.
Not
He
yet.
will.
No.
I mean, there's only so long I could keep doing.
Right. It's a matter of time.
I'm 136 years old.
That's what eating salmon does to you, buddy. Look at you. You're fantastic. What are some of the places for season 2 that you'd like to go? I mean,
yeah, we're kind of tossing it around.
You gotta be talking.
In the event that Netflix wants to do another season, and there's some great, we want to go to either the region of the world where Khabib is from, who just beat Conor McGregor. It's politically it's a little iffy, but they are ancient Greco-Roman wrestlers. They're champions, and there's a lot of UFC guys that come out of that region. My friend Greg Jackson, who's a coach, would probably come with me. But there's a sport in Italy that they do in Florence, which is basically rugby on horseback. I would like maybe to explore the Navy SEAL community because that's a fight culture. So it doesn't have to be confined to a specific place. It could be the culture of fight, like Israel.
Exactly, because that's really what it's about. It's yes, you're going to these different geographic locations, but you're talking to these individuals and getting deep into the culture that surrounds everything and their whole life and their whole ancestry, which is what makes episode 3, I think it's episode 3, where we're seeing like the traditional versus the new, right? And like, did you guys know that story was going to be there?
No.
Or did you find that?
No, and in the beginning, because he was training the really, really impoverished kids in the countryside there, and we in Myanmar, and we thought he was poor as well, that he lived there, and it turned out that Po lived in a building that his parents bought for him, and still these kids were eating rice you know, and he would go and train with them. It was a bit weird, and I didn't know how I felt about him. But I said, I don't want to get in the way of this because it's happening real time, and he's part of this fight community. A lot of guys don't like him. And then there was the elder guy who was just a traditionalist. He lived like a monk, with his wife's little desk and his desk, and that was, you know, and that sport is, you know, headbutts and who knows where that goes. I don't think it leaves Myanmar, but it is. It's a good culturally. It's a good thing to see the old and the new, and you know.
We're gonna run out of time in a second, and I promise the audience, as always, we get questions to them. So we're gonna go there in a little bit. But I got a couple of things. I wouldn't be doing my job. The series has been out for a little bit. A lot of people have watched it. I'm gonna ask you the same thing I asked you in the green room. Episode 4. I'm sure you had a reason for not showing us a conclusive, like an end to that fight. But people are, why would you do that to me?
I know, it's terrible. You know what? I kind of acquiesced to Pat McKinley, who directed all the episodes, and he's like, we don't want to see I don't care who wins. It's not about that. Now we know the journey these guys have taken just to get here, and what the country had to deal with the collapsing of the stadium, and all of the politics that they had to work through. And they're like, it doesn't matter who won. They both won. They both lost. They both won. Inshallah.
Yeah, I suppose. And that was just it, too, watching it. Like, as it happened, I was like, look, I know from a storytelling standpoint, this doesn't matter, and I know there's a lot of other important things going on here, but you stopped at like 4 frames before I knew who the hell won this match. It's like, as cold as I
know, it is cold. It is cold.
You mentioned Pat a couple of times. You worked with him on Kingdom.
Pat was not only the editor, but he directed the last 2 episodes where I actually fight Matt Hughes in that. He did all the music. I mean, the guy's a genius. He absolutely is a genius. Yeah.
Did he do on this? He did the music, or
he does all the music on Kingdom, on this. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah. Because that was one of the other things too. Is like, not that I've watched like a million fight documentaries, but just like in general, like the pop culture perception of the fight world is like heavy guitar, heavy metal, aggressive, blah, blah, blah. And like this was like such a chill soundtrack, and it worked. Like there was a lot more like bluesy, folksy things.
Yeah, you go the other way.
Tone
you go the other way, and then it becomes more emotional, and you know, and it becomes less of that noise in your head that you attribute a fighter walking out to a fight with, you know, because I don't want to hear that. That's not. I don't feel anything, you know. It's more cerebral almost. And he listen. I did a movie for Netflix called Wheelman. He cut that, and he did all the music in that. And this guy is. I have to tell you, I'm surprised he still works with me because he can go and do anything he wants to. Yeah.
Is he working with you on? I read a thing. I don't know how much you can say about this yet. That you were working on an adaptation of The Raid.
Yeah, we are. My partner and I are about to go into pre-production on The Raid. We have our version of The Raid. And
I mean, I got to ask you, a film that's held in such high regard, you must feel an immense amount of pressure and responsibility to that.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those films that it's not even that old, but it's already like a classic.
It's a classic, and it's beloved. And we've painstakingly rewritten the script so that it's a new version. Gareth Evans is one of the producers. He directed the original, and we all sat down and said, look, it's not going to be a remake. Yeah. It's going to be. I'm going to get killed for this. It's going to be a retelling of a very similar situation, but it's the story is heavy on the 2 brothers, right. and it's more story, and we don't want to do. Listen, I'm not even going to get near The Raid because that's a whole different thing. So, but I think Joe Carnahan, my partner, has directed Narc and Smokin' Aces and The Gray. We just did Balso together. It's in good hands. So yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like, if there's anyone with legitimate passion and true understanding, like if I was gonna have to trust somebody to try and do it, I'm excited to see what you guys do with it, man. I think it's in good hands for sure.
Thanks.
I keep getting the signal. We got a bunch in the room. Let's do it up. We've got microphones out there. First one looks like it's right here on this couch.
Hi. If you wasn't a villain in Marvel, who would you be?
I would be Robert Downey Jr.
Not even in the movie, just
no. I just want to be Robert Downey Jr.
We got a couple of more. We got more microphones. All right, next question we're going to do right here, and then we'll come back. Okay.
Hi, guys. So a few years back, there was a show on cable called Human Weapon, where 2 MMA fighters did almost exactly the same thing you did for FightWorld, where they traveled, learned, and then tested themselves against fighters there.
Yeah.
So did that show influence or inspire you?
No, it didn't. It didn't at all. I just remember it now that you're saying it. I remember watching it. And that was more geared towards what the fight styles were and if they could compete, and almost more of a tutorial about what it was. And this is far different in the sense that I'm much more interested in the culture of fight than I am the actual fight itself. But that was a great show. I remember watching it and I enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you for that question. There's a great line. I think it's in the trailer. It's in like the first 2 minutes of the show. It's not about fighting. It's about the people who fight.
Yeah.
Which is a great line. It sums it up. It's exactly it. And
It's true.
yeah. We've got what we're going to do. One more. We've got one more, and it's right back over here.
Okay. My question is, what movie has changed your life the most?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, as far as changing my personal life the most, I did a movie a long time ago called Warrior with Tom Hardy, who's now Venom, and Joel Edgerton, who's a wonderful actor and now director. And it was about MMA. It was about it's a family drama about MMA, and I played the coach in the movie. And that movie exposed me to people who had no idea who I was in the film business, and it changed the course of my career. That's a great question.
That's a great question. Thank you for that. All right, we're gonna wrap it up in just a second. But I was just thinking, because we got the Marvel question, and you had said, I was doing some research and stuff, and like when you type your name in, you had said one passing comment maybe like a day ago, and there's like 13 stories of like what you think about the next.
Oh, I know.
I'm not gonna ask you
get
about
in trouble.
that. No, but
no, do it. Say it.
Well, no, what I wanted to ask you about is not what you said. People can look it up and see it. Who cares?
Yeah.
But like, here you are, fairly removed from that world at this point, and you've done a phenomenal job, and yet you could say the tiniest thing, and it's like a spark.
Oh, I know.
Does that still blow your mind?
Oh,
that
it's
still
amazing.
that?
It's
Yeah.
amazing because I'm not used to that. Like, I never have to really monitor myself that way. And by the way, I'm in the second movie, I'm in it for maybe 20 minutes. In the third movie, I'm in it for like 11 seconds. And people will they'll say, oh, who does he think he is? Even answering that question. I'm like, I don't think I'm anybody. I'm answering, maybe it'll be an African-American woman that's Captain America. I don't know. I've heard all kinds of things. I hear things like you hear things. And then, listen, I'm sure it's going to go all over the place. And I'll get a call from my agent going, hey, Marvel's calling us. What's going on? I'm like, I didn't say anything.
All I could think of is because I searched your name and like 10 different headlines. I was like,
and they'll
this
call me a
poor
loser.
guy.
Like, they'll call me bad names. Like, you're a loser. You weren't even in the movie. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm a loser. I don't know. Why are you watching me? I don't.
You said one thing about what you might like to see, and like the internet blew up.
I know.
Like,
I thought my friend Anthony Mackie might become Captain America.
It's a cool thought,
right?
That's all it was.
Awesome.
Great.
I don't know. You could be Captain America.
Well, that's fair. That's very generous. But there is one person wooing here.
I'll tell you who'll never. I'll tell you who they'll never.
Movement than that. But thank you. That was.
I'll never be Captain America. That's for sure.
I don't want to hear that. Frank, it is always so awesome to have you on this show, man. I got to wrap things up. But I want to remind people, this incredible series, FightWorld, it's on Netflix right now. If you haven't watched it, you got to check it out. It's unbelievable. And congratulations on this and everything you got going on, man. I look forward to the next time you come back.
Appreciate it.
Everybody make some noise. Frank Grillo right here.
Thank you so much.
Frank Grillo.